Sharon Armstrong thought she'd found love online, but it was a lie. She was turned into a drug mule and spent over 2 years in prison.
It's taken her a long time to overcome the shame she felt, but Sharon Armstrong is now willing to share her story publicly to help others.
Sharon Armstrong has kept a low profile in Taranaki since she was freed from a Buenos Aires prison 2 years ago. But now she's let go of her anonymity and job to start a public campaign against online scams.
I'm hoping in time the focus will move from Sharon Armstrong drug mule to Sharon Armstrong campaigner.
To do this, she's now prepared to share her painful and humiliating story openly with everyone about how an online romance turned her into a drug mule. We can see some of the transcripts between you and Frank here. Are you embarrassed by these now when you read them?
Oh,
do you
without
find
a doubt. I mean, I don't even know that embarrassed is the right word. I mean, I find it quite sickening, really. It sickens me because I see now that it was all just part and parcel of the, big plan, I guess.
You were groomed?
Yeah, totally groomed, yeah.
In 2011, Sharon was duped, falling in love with a fake person named Frank Linus, who pursued her through a dating site. She spent months talking with the fake Frank, sharing personal, intimate details with him.
It started to consume me almost, like he became the focus around everything.
But they never physically met, nor did she ever see him other than in a sham photo.
All of that was somewhat engineered. That it was done purposefully to build trust, to put a person under pressure, to do all of those things that would get them to a point where they had total trust in this person that they had developed a relationship with.
She sent him $10,000. Her resolve was tested constantly, and when Sharon was completely hooked, she was asked to go to London for a first meeting. But she was told to pick up business papers in Argentina first.
The former public servant is in a jail in Argentina, accused of drug trafficking. She was allegedly caught trying to leave Argentina with 5 kilograms of cocaine hidden in the false bottom of a bag.
Did you know there was cocaine in that bag?
No.
What did you think you had in there?
I believed I had documents, his contract.
Sharon was sentenced to nearly 5 years imprisonment in Buenos Aires, serving 2.5 years.
No, I don't want to romanticise, it wasn't great. It was bearable.
She was heartbroken. Her romance was a scam and she'd been used to traffic drugs.
I was in a vulnerable space. I didn't realise at the time how vulnerable. When you're in that vulnerable space, you think differently. Now, I think, again, with that benefit of hindsight, I think, my God, those signs were so obvious, Sharon. Why didn't you see them?
The drug cartels have a lot of money, a lot of resource and expertise, and this is how they're doing it. And, welcome to the new world, I guess.
International barrister Craig Tuck is very clear. Sharon was one of many duped by drug cartels using the internet to commit crimes.
The business model that's being used by the cartels essentially is across borders quite easily. They're transferring drugs and people across borders, and they're using technology that is the internet, and often dating sites in particular, to target people.
Craig's acting on behalf of other Kiwis trapped into trafficking drugs through sophisticated online scams. His client, Anthony de Malmonge, received a 15-year jail sentence after being seduced by an internet dating scam.
What became very clear was that there was a drug cartel operating. We know that because we've intercepted a lot of communications that were coming from Pretoria in South Africa and from other countries around the world. We knew that the brains of that operation was in South Africa, and we knew that their operational base was in Guangzhou.
In court, Craig argued Anthony de Malmonge was trafficked for crime and believes Sharon may have been too.
From what we've been looking at, there's a vulnerability that they're identifying loneliness, or somebody that perhaps doesn't have the capacity to process information like most of us would. And it's from that point that they start working on a number. And when I say a number, that we think that probably they start in the thousands and end up with perhaps 100.
It's a similar story to Sharon's.
There were a couple of women that I was locked up with that I suspect, you know, had been scammed by probably, well, one of them in particular, by the exact same group. You know, she stayed at the same hotel as me, you know, in Argentina prior to being stopped at the airport. You know, there were just so many similarities. She also was told she was picking up documents, but hers were to do with property.
What would you like to say to your family?
What I want to say will be in private.
Craig says his focus isn't on willing drug mules, but those who are unwittingly coerced.
They are simply part of a dirty supply chain. They're totally vulnerable. They'll be sacrificed, you know, death penalty jurisdiction. So these people totally prepared to sacrifice them to a hanging, a beheading or a shooting. They have no issue with that. They're running volumes of people, volumes of drugs, and it's a multi-million-dollar business.
I spoke with the forensics expert who analysed Sharon's computer for her defence. He doesn't want to be identified, but says he found all the evidence on Sharon's computer backing up her story. He was surprised by how much effort the scammers put in. His impression was Sharon was just one of many women being lured into the scam. The forensics expert also helped Craig with his investigation, but the authorities barely followed up any of the leads in either Sharon's or Anthony's case.
I find it fascinating in this game as defence lawyer when we provide information to the authorities overseas, detailed information, you know, down to addresses and numbers and all sorts of stuff. Radio silence, don't want to know. Or we serve up people really close to the police force, they don't want to know about it. Or we can provide locations of certain factories, don't want to know about it.
After talking with Craig, Sharon now realises she was exploited by a multi-million-dollar international drug cartel. Although it scares her, she's refusing to stop raising safety awareness.
Well, I think that would be a big clue. Anyone who you haven't met, who, for whatever reason, is telling you that they need money, you know, it's a scam. There's a number of things that can become alerts or alarms, you know, things to watch out for. But, you know, my advice to anybody, don't, you know, if you're planning a trip to go overseas with someone that you've met online, and, you know, don't do it. You know, trust in what your whānau and friends are telling you. That, you know, if they're telling you it's dodgy, then I would say there's every chance that it is.
Craig has invited Sharon to join a small international group of victims, families, media and lawyers trying to fight this new emerging crime. She's willing to give up her quiet life to take on the scammers.
There's a perception that I was very foolish, that I should have listened, I should have known better, I was supposedly an intelligent woman, all of those things. But again, that's about focusing on me, on the victim. I really want us to turn that around and start to look at the scammers. What is it that they do? What are their tricks? How do they pull people in? How do they get into our psyche? How do they successfully get people to believe 100% in what they're saying? How does that happen?